Hello and welcome to Bulletin 141 of my Wills Probate and Administration Practice service. As you'd expect, a number of interesting cases are digested in this bulletin. The first, re Massey, involved an issue about testamentary capacity. There were a lot of somewhat complicating factors, but in effect it was about whether a will made in 1990 was made by the testator having testamentary capacity. The interesting thing was that medical evidence was to the effect that she didn't have capacity, and in fact 2 years after the will was made there was evidence that she was severely demented. What was found was that although medical evidence is not to be discounted, the judge was of the view that the best evidence was by two independent witnesses who saw her on the day, had known her in the case of one of them, a reverend minister of religion, who'd known her for 30 years, and his wife. And in the end, the judge said that their evidence was to be preferred and granted probate of the will. Just another case where, while medical evidence, as was said, is not to be discounted, it's not the be-all and end-all. And in this case, contemporary evidence of the people who actually saw her on the day she made her will was preferred, and especially since they knew her and would have identified any evidence of confusion or dementia or whatever it may have been that would relate to her capacity. The next one was an interesting intestacy case where there were a range of people who were potentially entitled on intestacy, and in the end the court preferred first cousins to another first cousin once removed. That was a child of a first cousin. Just thought it was interesting to note the difference there, that first cousins were preferred, first cousins once removed missed out. And then the other interesting case is a family provision case where there was an appeal, the Western Australian case, where there was an appeal against the findings of the primary judge, principally on the ground that the judge accepted the evidence given to the court about the applicant's financial circumstances, but there was no supporting documentation. While they couldn't point, this is the appellant, couldn't point to any inconsistency between the evidence that the person gave, the applicant gave, and the and any likely documentation that might be at odds with it, they were still of the view that because the judge didn't call for and was not provided with documentary evidence to support the evidence of the applicant, there was something wrong with that. The Court of Appeal said no, that was fine. Yes, there was no supporting evidence, but the judge accepted the evidence of the applicant, and that was sufficient. There was a little more to it, but I just thought that was interesting that there had not been the provision of records, but the evidence was sufficient, at least so far as the judge was concerned and the Court of Appeal was concerned, because the judge found that it was in order. That is the evidence of the applicant. And the only other aspect was whether, in fact, the applicant should have received anything, and the Court of Appeal was satisfied that the judge came reasonably to the conclusion that the person's circumstances were dire and that he was unlikely to be able to work again, so he received $150,000 out of a relatively modest estate. Thank you.